Hey gang, great to be with you. Thanks for joining me, and look forward to sharing a few thoughts with you today. And I thought I'd open with a scripture out of Mark chapter 4, verses 26 to 29. In the message, it reads this way, and it says, the opening statement is, never without a story. And it says this in verse 26. Then Jesus said, God's kingdom is like a seed thrown on a field by a man who then goes to bed and forgets about it. The seed sprouts and grows. He has no idea how it happens. The earth does it all without his help. First a green stem of grass, then a bud, then the ripened grain. And when the grain is fully formed, he reaps. Harvest time. And I think one of the things that appeals to me about this scripture, not only does it take me back to the time when I was on the board of NCD, Natural Church Development Australia. I was on the board there for a number of years, and it was a great privilege and opportunity to serve in that capacity. But I really appreciated the basic precept of NCD, Natural Church Development, and it stuck with me, continues to be with me to this day. But the thought that something's happened, we have no idea how it's happening, but God's up to something, working towards the harvest, is a very encouraging thought. And in the midst of the pandemic that we're rallying through at the moment, God's up to something. We've actually got no idea how it's happening or exactly what, but He is up to something. And I just think it's a privilege to be alive at this time and be able to be part of what God is doing on planet Earth. In our home churches around the place, I'm hearing some great stories of how God is challenging people at a deeper level, and I think that's a very profound thing, that the call to a deeper discipleship is resonating with people, and actually, as we set aside and learn in this season to set aside the distractions and the preoccupations, we're actually finding ourselves going to a deeper place in God. And I think there's always more to learn and to grow in, but what a great opportunity. And as we've been sharing out of the book Reappearing Church, Mark Sayer's book, over the last little while, getting up to chapter 5, and he introduces the concept of what he calls ambient anxiety, and the reality that we're actually in a society that is characterized by fear and insecurity and the unknown and uncertainty. And in the midst of all of this, we have a great opportunity as men and women of God to actually bring a contrary voice to what society would be trying to instill in us. And in one of the, on page 75, it makes this statement. He talks about change agents being introduced into the toxic system that is prevalent in the world today. He calls it a toxic system, and that there's a different kind of change agent being introduced into the system. That's you and I, self-differentiated leaders who understand the plans and purposes of God. Maybe we don't know the details, but we have a concept of the bigger picture. And he describes a self-differentiated leader this way. He says, internally driven by their goals and vision, and a refusal to engage in the environment of ambient anxiety, the self-differentiated leader begins to model a different reality. Their lack of fear begins to inspire others at a profoundly deep and often subconscious level, modeling an alternative to the dominant emotional toxicity that is in society at the moment. The self-differentiated leader acts like an antibody or a white blood cell, bringing health and renewal into the system. That's what I love, the thought that you and I are antibodies in a toxic system because of the faith that we have in God and the plans and purposes of Jesus coming to meet people at their personal point of need. And he identifies a key renewal principle in that live with a peaceful presence in an anxious system and you will become a healing agent of renewal. I love that thought, that you and I are healing agents of renewal, and that is part and parcel of the plan of God at this time and in this moment. And he goes on further in that chapter to talk about the presence paradigm, that you and I are bringing the presence of God into this toxic system and toxic culture with a different perspective. And He says that what counts is the leader's presence and being. You and I, as disciple makers and leaders, bring the presence of God, and a being founded in the concepts of God is a significant thing. It wasn't about what they did, it was about who they were. It wasn't about doing, it was about being. And I kind of love the fact that just by our presence in the society that God has placed us in, the opportunities and the circles of influence that He has entrusted to us, it's not about what we do, it's about who we are in that moment. And it takes us back to that scripture I read in Mark, where he says the seed sprouts and grows, and he has no idea how it happens. God's up to something. I've got no idea how this is going to happen, but I do believe that God is bringing a change through you and I. So as we continue to venture forward, as we carry the faith, as we continue to be the presence of God, salt and light in the circles of influence that He's placed with us, we actually are an antibody to the ambient anxiety that is surrounding us and affecting so many people. So be encouraged, be strong and of good faith as we continue to walk this walk together. God bless you, and we'll see you soon.